After setting up your response in the introduction paragraph, you're ready to actually analyze your first example, and you do that in the second paragraph. As with any paragraph of analysis, the first thing we have to do is tell the reader what that paragraph is going to be about, and we do that with a topic sentence. That seems pretty straightforward. However, one difficult thing to do is to write a topic sentence for that first paragraph that does not just repeat your thesis, because they're going to have the same ideas. You have to have the same central idea, and you have to mention your writing strategy. So how do you do that without just writing the same sentence over again? Well, you make use of synonyms, and you make use of sentence structure. So in this first example, I have characterization first, so that's my writing strategy. I did that first. And then I did the central idea second. So in my topic sentence, I did a pretty simple thing and I just reversed it. I have a hint toward the central idea here first, and then I had the writing strategy second. That's something simple. Obviously, you're going to have to use the name of the writing strategy. That's going to repeat. But you got to try to find other ways to do it. Now, curiosity, there's really no other word I could think of that captures that idea. But notice I left out ambition, because the example I'm going to get to isn't really about ambition. So the first one kind of focuses on the curiosity only. So I left out the ambition, which probably made it sound a little bit less repetitive. After introducing the topic sentence to tell the reader what the paragraph is going to be about, we bring in our first detail. So that's the second sentence. And in my case, with this response, the quote I needed to use kind of put me in a box, because the quote I wanted to use is so straightforward, it's so direct, that there's really not much to analyze. Anthony Doerr just simply wrote, "She is curious." How do you analyze that? So I needed it because that was an obvious and direct example of characterization, but I was going to have to go further. So I didn't try to make it sound deeper than it was, so I added a little transition saying, very simply, he writes, "She is curious." But I know I can't just stop there, it's too simple. So I knew I'd need to bring in more evidence to support this curiosity. So at this point, I've introduced the topic sentence. I've introduced a quote, although it's not a very developed quote, so that leaves me needing to do more. But now I've really got to focus on the writing strategy, because the author uses the writing strategy to enhance the central idea. So I've got to get the writing strategy first. I have to analyze that. Now, for certain types of writing strategies like diction or simile or metaphor, you might talk about the purpose of those things, like the purpose of the metaphor. What is the purpose of that word if you're using diction? Other ones you might talk about how the author creates the effect. Since we're doing characterization, that one fits more here. How does the author create this characterization that I'm saying he's using? So I've really got to explain that. And considering the quote I have is so straightforward and weak and there's not a lot to work with, I have extra work to do. So I wrote, but more importantly, he shows the reader the effect of that curiosity. Instead of sitting quiet and safe in one room, she ambitiously explores the entire building alone. At one point, a scientist brings her back to her father, saying, "I found her among the hummingbirds," line 37. So I knew that this wasn't going to be enough. I can't just say she is curious and then analyze that. There's not really much to analyze. So I have to show the reader of my response, I have to show them her curiosity. So I bring in a second detail. I tried to find a second quote that got to the curiosity, but of course if I had just tried to use this, it wouldn't have made any sense. I needed this and I needed something else. So I ended up using 2 quotes in this paragraph when, under easier circumstances, I might have used only 1. But your main goal is to make your point. You have to do whatever it takes to make your point. And if that means writing a couple extra sentences to make your idea clear, then that's what you have to do. And in this case, that's what I had to do. So I showed them her curiosity by saying she explores the building alone. I slid in a little bit of the other part of the central idea, the ambition part, even though that's not really my focus in this paragraph. I kind of hinted toward it. And so my quote, my evidence, was really 2 things. And now that I've shown her curiosity, I've done the characterization part. I've got this checked. I've got the writing strategy. So now I have to get to the central idea. So I set up the characterization, but why does Anthony Doerr characterize her this way? What is his point? How does this get to his central idea? That's what I've got to do next. Okay, so got it. Now we have to explain how this detail develops the central idea. Now, if you recall, my central idea was that obstacles can be conquered with curiosity and ambition. So somehow I've got to get from this saying she's curious and the scientist finding her in the hummingbirds to somehow she's overcoming limitations. So I wrote, without her curiosity, Mary Lore would probably have allowed her blindness to limit her to a room she was familiar with, but through Doerr's use of characterization, that curiosity pushes her to overcome her limitations and discover the exciting possibilities all around her. So your job here is to explain how this stuff gets to your central idea. And I tried to explain how her wandering around the museum demonstrated that she would overcome her limitations throughout the course of the book. So that's just what I explained here. You just take the details and step by step tell the reader how they prove your point, which is your central idea. Now, in this case, I felt like this sentence ended strongly enough that I didn't really need another concluding sentence. I kind of tacked on my concluding sentence into the same sentence using a contraction. So I have a concluding idea right here. It's just not its own sentence. I lumped it in with that. So I have a concluding sentence, but it's part of a compound sentence. So that's the end of the second paragraph. In the next video, we'll take a look at how to write the third paragraph.